So this is utilising concepts from a guy called Rob Tomset. Anyone heard of him?
Yep.
So I learned this from him in 2005 as an Agile project manager, and I've pretty much used it ever since. I will pretty much not start off a project until I've done something like this, and I try and coach almost every organisation to try and do this. To me it makes a whole lot of sense. So why the RAP workshop? Those two key points we all look for. Collective wisdom and shared understanding, right? But we also want to make sure all our senior stakeholders are all on the same page as well, so they can argue amongst themselves rather than bringing that argument down to the team level. So we have a usual meeting protocol, and you all know this, right? Meet the sponsor first. Love your sponsor. This person's going to help you and save you. Understand what the vision is, determine what the outcomes are desired from the meeting, and set an agenda so you make sure you get those outcomes and push hard so that you do. Do your stakeholder analysis. I should actually stand up and back the room, shouldn't I? By the way. So look at your stakeholders, analyse the important people. Who do you need in the room? Get your critical ones. These are the people that can stop your project. They are the money men or women. Look at your essentials. They are the delayers. They've got some people that you need, some resources, some infrastructure or something like that. Get them in the room as well. And your interested parties, those that are impacted by the outcomes of what you're going to deliver. So understand their personas and the politics of power. And we've all seen these types of personalities in the meetings we're in, right? We've got the Grim Reaper, he's just going to kill you because he doesn't like it. Marcel Marceau, lots of hand waving, doesn't actually say a hell of a lot or add any value. Marilyn Monroe, going to sit in the corner and look pretty. You've got the Richard Nixon, who's going to undercut you and basically slaughter your project sometime in the future. And you've got your Donald Trump, who's just all bullshit and bluster. But then we've got our reasoned person, the Colin Powells, and these are the people we try to utilise as much as possible. But we actually have to bring the rest of those people along on the journey to get them to sign up on what we're trying to achieve. We want to leave that meeting with one vision and one team. So let them fight it out, try and get them to fight it out. If they're sitting quietly in the corner, then you know they're not buying into what you're trying to do. So try and antagonise them, try and get them fired up, and get them to have some input into what you're trying to agree on. And this is basically the flow that you're going to go through. We want to have our idea, we talk to our sponsor, we confirm the vision, go into a meeting, we're going to look at our objectives, outcomes and our outputs. At that point in time we want to simply ask, do we want to go ahead or do we not? Because we're trying to see if we're going to align with the company's vision, the organisation's strategy, and are we in alignment with that? We're going to go through the sliders, look at the ARACUS, primary benefits, we're going to do some scope analysis, look at quality, estimate some features at a high level, look at the development strategy, and that's basically 4 hours, depending on how big your program of work or your project is. So all your senior stakeholders, those guys who have got no time for any meeting, we want them for 4 hours. And we've got a lot of input from them. We pretty much know how to structure the project to go forward. If they cannot commit to those 4 hours, how can you commit to the project for them? Push back. Never be afraid to push back. So let's break this down to what it looks like. This is from a real project for an insurance company in New Zealand. Identify the objectives, the outcomes of the measures that they want to achieve. I'll understand that. And look at the outputs. The outputs are the change to the status quo. So they, in effect, are going to become your feature sets. So you can see there's all measures in there. So you can't mind now. Seeing the numbers. But this takes a period of time. This takes quite a long time to actually figure out whether it's an objective, whether it's an outcome. What are you actually trying to achieve? And then you've got to start looking at what do we need to change to make this a reality? Is this a new greenfield system? Do we need to change the processes? It's not just focused on technology, it's looking at the whole outcome as a project. I can't read it. Then we start looking at the sliders or the project drivers. And have you all seen these before? No. Those that do use them, do you use that as well? So this is meaningless. People put lines on a slider board and they think it's meaningful, right? Put that up beside it and all of a sudden it has real meaning. So what this means is, in this situation here, we've got fixed, there's no movement at all. Flexible, we've got some trade-offs. We're prepared to trade off something. If, for example, we are doing a government compliance project, what is going to be fixed? Time. What is going to be completely flexible? scope and quality. You don't care, you're going to give it to the government, you're just going to satisfy the minimum requirements. So you're going to fix time and probably make costs, minimise that as well. But if you're doing a project where you're delivering perhaps a web-based solution to the great hairy unwashed out there in the world, then what is going to be the key driver? Customer. Stakeholder satisfaction, wherever that one is. You want that to be really high. If you want to have high customer satisfaction, what also needs to be high? Quality. If you're going to have high quality, what has to move? Scope and cost. But if you start looking at in the terms of the whole of life of the project over here, if you're trying to keep your costs the same and you have to trade off quality to hit that scope point, what happens? Your maintenance costs stay up over time until you fix the defects or the problems that are arising from what you've delivered. If you trade off time, you're moving your ROI out. If you trade off scope, then perhaps you're flattening out some of your ROI. And all of a sudden it has real meaning to your stakeholders when they start, instead of just putting a line on the board saying we're prepared to trade this off, what does it really mean? If you trade off your team, you think this is going to be a death march, we're going to work people really hard, we've got fixed time, fixed date, we need fixed time and fixed cost, we're just going to work everybody really hard, what's going to happen? Quality will suffer, but more importantly, those people will hate it, and where are they going to go? Somewhere else, and you've lost all that IP. And is that going to be reflected anywhere within your project? Possibly, because you may have some impact in trying to find new people to fill the hole, but if they leave after that project, that hits the organisation's bottom line. About 150k plus to replace it. So all of this starts to have real meaning rather than just sliders on a board. So if you're going to use these, use this along with it. It's going to make a lot more sense. All good? Then you start looking at your business benefit analysis, and I like this purely from a prioritisation point of view. Is your project about increasing revenue? Is it about avoiding cost? Is it about improving service? So all of those features that are revenue increasing in this case, they go to the top of the product backlog. Those that are about avoiding cost are probably pushed further out. We're focusing on the value, what we're trying to achieve, what are the objectives and the outcomes. And this is not you making this decision, this is your key stakeholders in the room. This is what ASB in New Zealand use. I'm sorry for those guys who can't see around the corner. But it's a lot more involved, a lot more maths, and I personally wouldn't go anywhere near it. Because I'm simply using this as a prioritisation point, but it helps set a scene for the stakeholders. Then we can actually start, if we looked at our outputs to change the status quo, that's pretty much given us our features. We can actually start breaking those down. What is in scope? What is out of scope? Get that agreed from your stakeholders. But more importantly, we're just not looking at technology. We're looking at the people and the process as well. Too much time we spend looking at here and we forget about this. But where do we deliver our outcome from? You release something to production, some really cool technology, looks really glitzy and glamoury, but can anyone use it? Do we need to release some training plans? Do we need to actually have trainers going around a broker network or something like that, teaching them how to use the system? How do we gain our outcomes? So we need to be very careful that we capture this and assign an owner to it. And if we're unsure, get someone to own that. Come back with the answer. I'm not saying anything's not common sense, right? So, I might finish early so we go up. So, we've started to get to this point here, so we've actually got a high-level scope document right there and then. That can be fleshed out, you can put it, prioritise it, put it up on a board. Generally when I do this, I do want them to prioritise that for me. Simply 1, 2 or 3, what is the prioritisation level you've got on each one of those in-scope features? Then we start looking at quality, the quality agreements we want these stakeholders to agree on. And you might have sales, operations, finance, audit, and the sponsor, and they're going to have a different view of the world. But we need to try and facilitate them to get to some level of agreement on what quality looks like. And this is quality looks at all your itties, your reusability, your flexibility, scalability, security, because guess what quality actually means? It means a cost. And if it means a cost, maybe we need to revisit this. What are they prepared to trade off? And if they're simply saying, fixed scope, fixed time, these are all fixed, what can you guarantee? Failure. At least one, if not two of those points will fail. And you have to be upfront and point that out and have the courage to say, this project is doomed. At least one of those characteristics will fail. Then we start looking at a development strategy. Is it going to be agile? Is it going to be traditional? Is it going to be a hybrid? What does that mean? They're quite happy to do the checkbook commitment. We want you to do agile, and then what happens? You don't see them again until you go live and they don't like it. You've given them something that's like, might as well done traditional. So we had a project like this, unfortunately, one of the organisations I was in, where they said they wanted to go agile. The contract was written as, we want this project to be agile, we'll rely on communication and collaboration, and that was it. There was no substance at all behind it. The sponsor wrote this contract, said, I want a back-end database with a front-end GUI to capture shortcodes for a telco. 120k was the quote. She handed it over to her BAs, and what happened? We had this all singing, dancing, 24/7 gold-plated solution. This big document created, passed over to our team, lots of communication and collaboration, 2 PMP qualified project managers who provided absolutely zero governance to it. And they wrote off 390,000, I wrote off 180,000. And we spent the next 3 months arguing with them and negotiating, trying to keep the 180 they'd already paid us. This was a 120k piece of work. That's all it was. So checkbook commitment doesn't work. So you've got to make sure that when you have this meeting with your stakeholders, they say they want to go agile. Agile to them means something different than it does to you. They're thinking, we're going agile, it's going to be faster time to market, more quality, yada, yada, yada. But they never think about their time. And we need their time. Then we go through the raids, looking at what I guess back to that point. So you have to facilitate each one of those points to get an agreement. How important is reusability, scalability, flexibility, etc.? Because you know your operations guy probably wants it. Sales, they don't care. Your sponsor, depending on their level, whether they're looking into the future or just in this little part of the world, they might not care either. But it all impacts your budget. So you need to get some sort of agreement on that. So when you start looking at your risks and assumptions and issues, find an owner. What is the impact? How are you going to mitigate it? What is your time frame you're going to mitigate it in? What is the impact on the project? So there, pretty much we've done 4 hours. As senior executive level stakeholders, your C-level type execs can go home. Well, they're probably going to go and do another meeting somewhere else. I'll just point out this part here. When we did this for a project in the UK. I think I shared this story in the metrics this morning, did I? Where we had a finance manager and a marketing manager argued for 2 days in one of these rep sessions. What was more important, scope or cost? Finance manager says you're getting no more money. Marketing manager says I need this scope. We as a vendor say we need £250,000 to deliver this. 2 days they argued what was more important. We went away and got the CEO to come in and sort this mess out for us, and he said, let me be very clear to you, as soon as this project goes live, I make £3 million a month. I don't care about the cost. Get it live, get it out the door, give me my ROI. But the finance manager would have felt pretty silly right then, right? But what is his job? He is KPI'd on managing cost, managing the finances. His boss could make that step because he owned pretty much everything, but he was trying to do his job and what he was actually measured on. So within that context of that meeting, you've got to understand each individual's drivers, and everybody has different KPIs and different measures. So it's a very difficult game to try and facilitate and get to a solution which you know is required, and quite often you have to go up to that level above them to get a solution that you move forward with. Then we move into our high-level design. That's it. We don't need to spend months going away writing up really pretty Visio diagrams trying to get something to work. It doesn't work. We delivered the number portability solution for Vodafone in New Zealand when they brought that in. We had a requirements document that thick and a design spec that thick, and we were dependent on a Siebel implementation from IBM, which was already 2 years late. Chances of that happening, 0. So when that didn't deliver, this is all we had. Every single day we had 2 architects whiteboarding technical solutions that may work. We were supposed to integrate to 3 systems. I think we ended up integrating to 25. But we had designed with that in mind because we didn't trust the civil implementation actually happening. But they were just giving us a new sheet of paper, printed off a whiteboard, every day, try that. And it worked because we got to a point where we were so far ahead of the game, we were telling the people developing the hub down in Christchurch that your specs don't match your code. We said as soon as you go into carrier testing, everybody's going to fall flat on their face, except for us because we're going to put a fix in and we're going to go around it. They wouldn't believe us. We escalated basically up to the government minister. Still didn't believe us. 5 minutes into carrier testing, they fell flat. But we had put a little quick fix in, went around their problem. But we had to do this daily because we had so much change happening. I have no idea yet how we delivered it, but we managed to. In the end, we satisfied the government regulations because there was a legal loophole. We could not port prepay numbers. We could only do postpay. But the government never covered off that little loophole, so that's good. And then looking at your cost-benefit analysis. We all do this, right? Everybody does cost-benefit analysis. Where are you pushed back on? Cost. Everybody push back on cost. We are pretty comfortable in what our costs are going to be. Why don't we push back on benefits? Sell more widgets. We'll make it work. No one ever pushes back on the benefits, and hardly any organisation actually measures the benefits when you've gone live. But we are pushed back on this number all the time. This is from a real example for a insurance company in Wellington. This was our quote to them, and then they realised they'd missed out another vendor. So this number went up by 250k. So if you look at the most likely, does it still stack up as a project to go ahead? Pretty much, unless there's something else got a bigger return, right? What do you think their sponsor did? Stopped it. Says, I want to spend the next 2 months reworking out these estimates into a low level of detail to give me the level of comfort to go ahead. So the numbers came back, as expected, 750, nothing else changed, and he was happy to go ahead. But I was also in a meeting with his CEO and himself, and a few of the other senior execs, and I says, what did you really do? He says, I found out a realistic estimate. And I says, did it change? No. I says, but that number is no longer 750k. That number is now 900,000. You've just invested all your people's time and effort and increased your cost by another 150k-ish, and you've delayed your delivery by over a month, 2 months. That is the true impact of what you've done. Well, in reality, you actually had an estimate, which is all it was going to be anyway, up front that meant it was still a viable product. He did not understand that it was just about estimates. He could not get the definitive answer he was looking for. And once we've got our high-level design, call it an architectural runway if you like, as well, and we've got our feature list, we can actually start plotting out roughly what our milestone points are going to be. And if we know what our milestone points are going to be, what does that tell us? It tells us what feature sets we need to fit in where, we do minimal viable product, etc. to get to that point. And this is a sell job, because you're doing a sell job on your execs, what this thing could look like. Make sense so far? What do you think your executives and your senior people are thinking? Oh yeah, I can agree with that. I know what I'm going to trade off. I get out to here, and some of these features out here I know I'm not going to get. What am I prepared to trade off? I've already said I want to trade off scope, or I can throw more budget into the pot. This is from a company in Palmerston North. Anyone here know what Palmerston North is? It's an interesting place. There's a lot of nightlights there. Anyway, they're developing a system for school administration, and it was changing it from a desktop application, which was very hard to maintain, to a SaaS-based model where they're sharing all the information with different students across lots of different schools that use their system. And this is how they broke it up. So they're going to have, these are the basic features. The R1 was the release they were targeting in it. This is the various components, and there's the release schedule. That's all it was. That was their release plan. And their executives were happy to go along with that. How long did it take to create that? Well, there's a lot of discussion around there, a lot of negotiating what could fit in there, but it provided enough information for their director to say, I can see what you're doing, I trust what you're doing, go forth. Once you've done your cost-benefit analysis, I forgot to mention that, that's also a go, no-go decision, right? Is it worth proceeding? Are we going to carry on? Are we going to throw good money after bad? Should we stop here? Is there another project in our pipeline that is going to have a greater return and deliver greater value to the organisation? It's a go, no-go decision at that point now. Look at your proposed people plan. I'm not allowed to use the word resource anymore. Look at your proposed people plan. Who are you going to need? What is the cost going to be? Plan it out. This is all a thumbsuck, right? But it's giving you an idea of what it's going to take to deliver this piece of work. Then create a strawman roadmap. This is from a real, it's not a real project, it's a sell job we did for a company in Brisbane. They had a $38 million asset on their books that didn't work. It was vaporware. So we told them how we'd fix it for $3 million. We told them what it would look like, and this is what we need from them in terms of this is our ceremonies, this is what our people will cost, this is what your people are going to cost, and just basically plotted out what it was going to look like without giving them any real definitive answers anywhere in the middle of it. And they were happy with that because it met their needs. Develop the project schedule. And then what have we got? We've got our features, we know we're prepared to trade off. We've got basic scope, we've got a basic design, a basic cost-benefit analysis, a basic resource plan, a basic schedule. We've pretty much got a high-level charter. We've got our deliverables, our objectives, what the success criteria look like. Stakeholders are going to sign up to it, right? So we go back and see these people that were in the first session, our delayers and our payers. We're going to basically show them what we've come up with. This could take a week, 2 weeks, and just revisit it and get them to agree. They're going to commit to this. And we're done. Told you I'd get to the pub early. So, any questions on the rep session? Does anything in that not make sense? That one? The most important part, if you're going to do it at all, make sure you do that and that, and ideally those two.
So what are they signing off on the end?
Everything. You've given them, you're agreeing on the objectives and the outcomes, what you're going to change.
A signature on one piece of paper that had no relevance to the rest of everything else.
Are you going to give them that one piece of paper?
No. So what are you giving them? Every single bit of artefact that you've created in that whole process?
Yep. But explaining it to them. You're not just giving it to them,
No.
you're having a conversation, right?
Do you think business sometimes just basically bites off more than it should chew, that it just goes for projects that are way too big? I mean, sometimes you need a moonshot, but often I think, you know, we sort of like, oh, let's do the next $5 million project. Maybe it'd be better to do 10 $500,000 projects.
I think they do, and that's why bringing in some sort of mechanism to help business do that analysis is really good. Weighted shortest job first is a way to do it at program level. Cost-benefit analysis, cost of delay is another big one to use in portfolio or the project level. Unfortunately, and any of you visited Scaled Agile here? Looking at Scaled Agile? This adds a lot of relevance to me. This comes in at the portfolio level, right up the very top of the Scaled Agile planning board. We start to unpack an idea into something real and tangible to give us enough information we can plan and prioritise it into a pipeline of work. But once we've done that, what is the usual process that most corporates do? We've got our portfolio, we've agreed it's in the pipeline, teams go forth. And what are we missing?
Funding.
Oh, you got the money. Funding will happen, just accept it. That's at the team level.
Ongoing collaboration.
Ongoing collaboration, and no one's looking after your mid-range plan.
Yeah, so
Everything is just do, rather than let's figure out where the value is. Do we need to do all of this? We've got all those features here. Where is the real value? What are we trying to achieve? Let's focus on that. Let's plan that in. Let's also understand what our architectural needs are for that, rather than just going forth and giving it to the technology team. Build. We're so focused on output, not outcome.
why do you believe that this is anti-no estimates?
I don't.
Right.
I'm personally anti-no estimates.
Right. And then why do you believe this is
Such a good tool.
Yeah.
Because this brings my stakeholders into my project. They're no longer just signing off a piece of paper and say, there you go, come and talk to me in 18 months when you've delivered this. I'm saying, no. I'm bringing them in, I'm getting their viewpoint. When I've got pretty much to here, I know what they want. I've got the contextual discussion in negotiation. I know what they are actually after.
And then how do you communicate with them throughout the whole project then? You've built this great rapport with them at this meeting and got all of their buy-in. How do you make sure that that just doesn't disappear the minute they walk out the door?
So you have regular meetings, set up regular meetings. When we did this in ASB in New Zealand, one of our sponsors was the second highest person in that bank. A little project manager who was just a graduate come on board. He picked up one of the projects. His sponsor was this. He rings him up and says, I need an hour of field time every week on a Thursday. And guess what that second in the bank did? Went away and saw the CEO and says, it's working. These guys want to be involved. We don't let them. So if we can provide a mechanism where they have some input and also try and encourage them to be engaged. If we can bring them along to a showcase, fantastic. If we can bring them onto a release planning meeting, even better. Get them engaged. I personally love it. I think it works really, really well. Anyone here from NAB? Bob Tom sits in there, right, doing this. A lot of other organisations use this process as well.
Okay, I see it as a framework for a day, but not as a framework for a project.
For a
framework for a meeting is what it is.
So that meeting gives you your stakeholders' input, right? This week gives you a project charter or a business case. How long are you going to invest in creating a project charter or a business case?
Well, I think that should be ongoing throughout the whole project.
So you're going to get ongoing funding saying, I've missed the boat here, I want more funding, more funding, more funding. Well, what are you going to do?
Okay. Fine.
You're setting a scene, right?
Yeah.
Based on their input. You're doing a lot of work down in here, fleshing out a lot of the detail to get your high-level business case. But you're not investing months and months and months of time and effort.
I want to see that then translated to the length of the project and the project wrap-up and the delivery.
Seeing this.
That sort of framework thing.
Yeah, if something changes dramatically, like your technology choice screws up completely, or something unexpected happens, you need to revisit this. You need to get these guys back into a meeting because something's changed. But you're trying to bring all your stakeholders on board to get an agreement and support the initiative that's on the table. Rather than sending a document around, 10 different people, get their signature, get their signature, get their signature. I disagree with that. I'm going back to here and you guys are going to have to revisit this. Get their signature, get their signature, get their signature. It's just waste. This is all about collaboration. Any other questions? You're all thirsty. I'm thirsty. Thank you very much for your time.